So in this module, we are actually going to discuss about foreign trade. Okay, so here we will start with the types of trade policies. Okay, then we will discuss about trade policy reforms from 1991 onwards. Okay, so we will discuss about trade policy reforms. There I'll be talking about all the reforms which happened post 1991. Then we will discuss foreign trade policy, specifically 2015-20. Okay, what was our target, what is our target, and all those things will be discussed here. Okay, so in this 3 sessions we'll be covering this foreign trade chapter. Okay, so let's start with the types of trade policies. Types of trade policies. Okay, so there are 2 types. One, free trade policy. Free trade policy. Okay, it is also known as outward oriented policy. Okay, outward oriented policy. So in free trade policy, actually very least restrictions on the trades. Okay, second one is protectionist trade policy. Protectionist trade policy. Okay, so you can see here more restrictions will be there, and this is what we call as inward oriented policy. Okay, so free trade policy and protectionist trade policy. Now, how protectionist trade policy is implemented? Through various measures. So here I told you already there will be restrictions on trade, and that restrictions will be on the basis of trade barriers. And what are the different type of trade barriers? There will be tariffs. Okay, so tariffs, and then non-tariff barriers. Okay, so tariff barriers means in terms of some amount, that duty that you are paying, and everything else is actually non-tariff barriers. Now, what are the examples of non-tariff barriers? You can see examples as quota. Okay, so you'll be fixing a particular quota on some item. That means it's actually a quantitative restrictions. For, after a particular amount, after a particular point, you cannot import or you cannot export. That is what quantitative restriction. Okay, that is what quota. Okay, so the quota will be fixed. Second, tariff quota. So you can see here tariffs are mainly based on customs duty. Okay, customs duty. Now this point, what I mean by this is actually, see, at some point of time there will be normal customs duty, and after a particular point there will be more customs duty charge. That is what tariff quota. Okay, so that is also related to rate. Okay, so here it's like this. So if you are going for custom duty, that is a tariff barrier. Okay, this is the normal situation. Let's suppose this is a duty. Now beyond this, okay, let's suppose this quantity, after this quantity, if you need to import or export, you have to pay more custom. You have to pay more customs duty. Okay, so this is how you can interpret this. Okay, now the third one, you have anti-dumping duties. Anti-dumping duties. Okay, anti-dumping duties are actually the additional customs duty. Okay, additional customs duty which is charged. Now, what do you mean by what do you mean by dumping? Dumping is like the cheap products are sold in another country, or the products are sold in another country, some other country, at a very cheaper price than the market price in that country. Okay, so China, it's like Chinese products are coming to India. So in India the price may be 10 rupee, but the Chinese product, the same product is coming and selling at maybe 7 rupees, something like that. Okay, so it is selling in foreign country less than the market price of the, or the less than the domestic price. Okay, next will be countervailing duties. Countervailing duties, or CVDs. Okay, CVDs. Now what are CVDs? These are actually additional customs duty. In case of dumping also, I told you these are additional customs duties which are imposed to offset the impact of indirect taxes or subsidy provided by the exporting country's government. Exporting country's government. Okay, so what is countervailing duty? These are additional customs duty which are imposed on certain product for what? To offset the impact of indirect taxes or subsidies provided by the exporting country's government. Let's suppose I'll take two countries, country A and country B. Okay, now let's suppose this pen cost 10 rupee. It's actually 10 rupee. The real value addition is 10 rupee. Now let's suppose from country A, there will be a subsidy for this, like let's say 4 rupee. So ultimately it costs 6 rupee. Okay, but in this country B there is no subsidy. So in the domestic market it is sold at 10 rupee. Now here it is 6 rupee, here it is 10 rupee. Now what the exporter of this country can do is he can export that and he can sell that here at 7 rupee. Okay, so what will happen? Because of this subsidy, he is capable of exporting and he is capable of selling it at a very cheaper price, and that will actually create a huge problem for the domestic manufacturers or domestic industries. Now what the government can do to offset this subsidy, government can add 4 extra. Okay, so this will become 11. So here it is 10 already. So when this 11 comes, this won't be competitive now. Okay, so this won't capture the market. So I hope you understood this word countervailing duty. It is actually an additional customs duty which are imposed. What is that additional custom duty? That you can see here, this 4 rupee, which is the additional custom duty which is imposed by the importing country government. Okay, to offset the subsidy given by the exporting country's government. So here you can see the subsidy which is given as 4. So here extra customs duty which is charges 4. That is what countervailing duty. Okay, next is so we have discussed about 4 different types of non-tariff barriers. Now one more will be there, import licensing. Okay, so actually everything other than this tariff barriers, okay, everything other than this customs duty is actually classified under non-tariff barriers, and there can be many other non-tariff barriers also. We will be discussing in detail when we discuss about WTO in the next module. Okay, now let's move on to trade policy reforms. Trade policy reforms 1991 onwards. Okay, what are the reforms which have been taken place from 1991? The first one that we need to discuss is actually customs duties have been reduced. Okay, custom duties decreased. Okay, see the peak rate of customs duty, what is that? It is actually, it is the highest rate of customs duty which is imposed on the items under the OGL, Open General License list. Okay, OGL is Open General License list. So you can see customs duties have been reduced drastically. The peak rate of customs duty, what is that? It is the highest rate of custom duty which is imposed on the items under OGL list. Actually the items under OGL list is also reduced. Okay, now if you see, if you take all the items, if you remove agriculture from that, most of them is having actually less than 10% as the customs duty now. So if you can classify like this, the total imports, okay, or exports, there will be an OGL list, Open General License category, then there will be agriculture items. Okay, so here also there may be some negative list that is actually reduced, and the customs duty is also reduced drastically. Okay, second one, negative list reduced. I told you already customs duties have been reduced. Okay, negative list, so there may be some negative, there was some negative list here that was also decreased. Negative list means those items which you cannot export or you cannot import. Okay, so those items also actually reduced. Third one, quantitative restrictions, okay, on OGL category have been abolished. Okay, quantitative restrictions on the items of OGL list were abolished in 2001. So the quantitative restrictions are no more there. Okay, see in 1999 we had quantitative restrictions on around 1500 items. Okay, and as per WTO norms it was not allowed. So what happened is USA sued India in dispute settlement board of WTO, and after that in 2001 we have reduced this number to half. Okay, so we have reduced this number to 1/2, half of this number. Okay, so quantitative restrictions have been abolished later. Now next is scope of import licensing decreased. Okay, so That means now import licensing is required only for few items. You don't want import licensing for all the items. Okay, next one. In 1994, we have already discussed this point when we discussed about capital market. Okay, so there was current account convertibility. So what will be the next one? In 1993, you can see till then we have a fixed exchange rate. Now we have a managed float. Okay, so managed float exchange rate system. Okay, so basically liberalization of exchange you can see in 1993. Managed float, it is not completely floating. Okay, it is managed float. If RBI need to interfere, RBI can interfere. In case of huge appreciation of or depreciation of currency, RBI can interfere, and that's why we call it as managed float rather than simply floating. Okay, so there are two types, fixed and floating. We have already discussed this, and in India's case it is managed float. At times RBI can interfere. Okay, next point, actually there were some export promotion schemes. Export promotion schemes have been introduced. Okay, increased. Okay, more and more export promotion schemes. So you can see the scope of export is actually widened after this. Few examples are like this: duty drawback scheme. Duty drawback scheme. So duty drawback scheme. So what is duty drawback scheme? Actually, under the scheme, some of the customs and excise duties which is paid by the people will be reimbursed. Okay, so it is basically to promote exports. Okay, so export promotion scheme. So the customs duty and the excise duty which is paid by the exporters of certain items will be reimbursed. Next is export promotion. Export promotion capital goods scheme. Okay, EPCG scheme. Okay, export promotion capital goods scheme. So you can see here, this is related to capital goods. Okay, and this is related to export promotion. Now what is this scheme? See, under this scheme, actually the exporters can import or they can domestically procure the capital goods. Capital goods means I'm talking about machineries, okay, which they are going to use for export purpose, which they are going to use for value addition. Okay, for this and you can procure this without any customs duty or excise duty or minimum. Okay, it will be very low, and it is subject to certain condition. What is the condition? The condition is something like this: in 6 years, okay, whatever tax you actually saved, okay, the 6 times of it have to be exported in 6 years. Let's suppose you are saving 100 rupee as the customs duty if you are saving when you are importing, so you have to export minimum 600 in 6 years. Okay, what is the 600? 6 times the duty saved. Okay, 6 times the tax saved in 6 years. So this is what EPCG. So under EPCG you can actually import or you can domestically procure any capital goods, that means machinery, with a very less concessional rate of tax, okay, customs duty, and subject to certain condition. The condition is you have to export 6 times of the duty saved in 6 years. That is what EPCG scheme. Next is focus product scheme. So third one, focus product scheme. See, under focus product scheme, actually the exporters of selected labor intensive commodity, okay, so labor intensive commodity are provided with duty credit scripts. Okay, so they have given duty credit scripts, and duty credit scripts are given at 3% of the value which is of the export. Okay, so whatever they have exported, let's suppose 100 rupee they are exporting, then 3 rupee DCS they are getting. Okay, and they can use this DCS actually to pay the excise or custom duty. Okay, so I hope you understood. So under the scheme, the focus product scheme, actually the exporters of selected labor intensive commodities are provided with duty credit scripts, DCS, okay, equivalent to like 3% of their total exports. Okay, and this they can use. What is the use of it? They can use this DCS to pay the excise or customs duty. So that is what focus product scheme. Then we have fourth one, focus market scheme. Okay, focus market scheme. It is actually targeting the specific market. So we have discussed these are the major trade policy reforms from 1991 onwards. The first one, customs duties have been decreased. I told you already, peak rate of customs duty. What is that? It is the highest rate of custom duty which is imposed on the items under OGL list. I told you OGL list is the open general licensing category, which involves some negative list also, and later those numbers in the negative list actually reduced, and the quantitative restrictions on the items of OGL list is also reduced. And I've told you in 2001 how is it happened, because of WTO norms. USA sued in India and DSB, Dispute Settlement Board, and then we have reduced the QR, okay, quantitative restrictions. Then we have seen scope of import licensing is actually decreased. That means you don't want import licensing for all the items that you're supposed to import, okay, only for certain items you need that. So that is actually a kind of liberalization. 1994, current account convertibility. 1993, managed float exchange rate system. So that is again liberalization in exchange rate system. Export promotion schemes, we have seen the schemes here. Duty drawback scheme, okay, so under this some percentage, okay, some of the customs and excise duty which is paid by the exporters will be reimbursed. Export promotion capital goods scheme. So under this, actually an exporter can import or domestically procure the capital goods or the machinery which is used for value addition, okay, at a very low tax, and whatever tax you have saved, you have to export 6 times of the amount of the tax in 6 years, and that is this is actually subject to this condition, okay. Then focused product scheme. So under this selected exporters of selected commodities, okay, what are that? Labor intensive commodities, okay. They are provided with DCS, duty credit scripts, which is equivalent to 3% of the total exports, and they can use that DCS to pay their excise or customs duty. Then focus market scheme. So these are the trade policy reforms from 1991, major trade policy reform that we need to talk about. If you get a question in mains, you have to elaborate all these points. Now we will look into trade policy from 2015 to 2020, okay. So foreign trade policy 2015-20. So who's drafting this? This is actually Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Now what are the objectives? So the first objective is actually to double the exports of goods and services to $900 billion by 2020, okay. So double the exports of goods and services to $900 billion by 2020. Then next will be India's share in world export, okay. So increase India's share in world exports from 2% to 3.5% by 2020, okay. So this is the objective of foreign trade policy 2015-20 draft. It is Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and the objective is actually double the exports of goods and services to $900 billion by 2020 and increase India's share in world exports from 2% to 3.5%, okay. Now let's look into the features of it, okay. So the features, the first one, merchandise exports from India scheme, MEIS, okay, merchandise export from India scheme. It was launched by merging 6 existing schemes, okay, 6 existing schemes. What are they? The focus product schemes, okay, so focus product scheme, the focus market scheme, market linked focus product scheme, okay, Vishesh Krishi Gram Udyog Yojana, then you have incremental exports incentives scheme, agriculture, infrastructure incentive script, okay, it's not script, okay. So what is that? Merchandise export from India scheme, MEIS. It was launched by merging 6 existing scheme, focus product scheme, focus market scheme, market link focus product scheme, VKGVY, okay. incremental export incentive scheme, agricultural infrastructure incentive script. So these are 6 programs which is merged into MEIS. What is this? Under MEIS, actually again DCS was provided. So duty credit script was provided of 2%, 3%, 5% of the value of exports. That we have already discussed when we discussed about focus product scheme. Okay, so here 2%, 3%, 5% of value of exports was provided for exports of notified products to notified countries. Okay, so notified products to notified countries, 2%, 3%, 5%. Okay, different levels are given. Value of exports. Okay, so DCS means duty credit scripts for exports of notified products, not all products, to notified countries. Second one, service exports from India scheme. Okay, service exports from India scheme. See, under this again DCS was provided 3% and 5% of value of export provided to exporters of notified services located in India. See, this is the key word here. Notified. So here it was notified product to notified countries, no problem. So here it is notified services located in India. Okay, so 3 and 5% of duty credit script of the total exports. Now here it actually replaced served from India scheme. Okay, under the scheme, actually only for Indian service providers this DCS was given. In served from India scheme, only for Indian service providers this DCS was given. But under the service exports from India scheme, even a foreign company which is located in India, and if they are exporting, they are also getting the DCS. So what I mean to tell you is, it replaced the served from India scheme. Under served from India scheme, only Indian companies were getting the benefit. Okay, now under this SEIS, even the foreign company, if it is located in India and if they are exporting some notified products, they will also get DCS. So it is not only for Indian companies. Okay, it is located in India. Okay, it is just a domestic concept. Even a foreign company located in India, they also get the DCS if they are exporting the notified products. Okay, the third one is, there are some special provisions for MEIS and SEIS. Okay, MEIS and SEIS. So you can actually use DCS, the duty credit scripts, which can be used for payment of custom, excise, service tax and other selected fees. Okay, so we have already discussed this point, special provisions for MEIS and SEIS. What is MEIS? We have discussed. SEIS we have discussed. So this DCS can be used for payment of customs duty, excise tax, excise duty, certain selected fees and all those things. Okay, service tax, everything in all these cases you can actually use this DCS. One more point under this is, the DCS and the goods imported against this DCS can be freely transferable. So you can transfer this DCS, and the goods imported under the DCS can also be freely transferable. There won't be any further charges. Okay, now higher DCS will be given for higher value addition. So it actually promote the value addition, it actually promote the exports. Now next point, EPCG. We have already discussed this export promotion capital goods scheme before we have discussed. So export promotion capital goods scheme. Now what is EPCG? When we discussed before, it was actually an exporter can actually import or can domestically procure any capital goods. Okay, that means any machinery subject to certain condition. What was that condition? You have to export 6 times of the duty saved. Okay, in 6 years. Now here there is some modification. it is actually reduced to 75%. Okay, so reduced to the obligation is actually reduced to 75%. What does that mean? And this is actually for if you're domestically procuring. So there were two options: either you can import the capital goods or you can domestically procure. So in both cases it was 6 times in 6 years, but in case of domestically procuring it was reduced to 75%. So 100% means 6 times. Okay, so what about 75%? It was reduced to 75. Now it is 75% means it is actually 4.5 times. So in case if it is domestically procured, you need to export 4.5 times of the tax saved in 6 years. If it is importing, it is still the same, that 6 times in 6 years. So I hope the difference is clear. If an exporter can import the capital good, exporter can domestically procure the capital good. If you are importing the same, that means 6 times in 6 years. But if you're domestically procuring, earlier it was 6 times in 6 years, now it is 4.5 times in 6 years. It was reduced to 75%. Okay, next point is trade facilitation. Trade facilitation and ease of doing business. Ease of doing business. Okay, so under the certain points are there: online filing of documents or application in a 24/7 environment. Okay, online filing of documents 24/7. Now the chartered accountants or secretaries can actually upload digitally signed documents. Digitally signed documents. The chartered accountants or secretaries can upload digitally signed documents. Third point: the exporters and importers profile will be created. Okay, why it is done? Because otherwise every time when you export or import, you have to produce the same documents again and again. Okay, so some of the permanent document you can keep it permanent once you create the profile. So exporters and importers profile will be created, which is actually helping you from producing the documents again and again. Okay, next point: facility for online payment of fees. Okay, online payment of fees. Next point: 108 MSME clusters. MSME clusters were identified. MSME clusters were identified for focused intervention. Focused intervention, and accordingly, the NAD Bhandu scheme, NAD Bhandu scheme, to be restructured to achieve the objective of Skill India. Okay, so online payment of fees. So what are the points that we have discussed under this? Online filing of documents and other applications in a 24/7 environment. The secretaries and the chartered accountants can upload the digitally signed documents. Exporters and importers profile will be created so that you can eliminate that submission of permanent documents again and again. Online payment of fees. 108 MSME clusters were identified for focused intervention, and accordingly the NAD Bhandu scheme was restructured to achieve the objective of Skill India. Now what is NAD Bhandu scheme? It was introduced in 2011. Okay, it actually seeks to reach out to exporters and mentor them through orientation program, facilitation, training, etc. Okay, so NAD Bhandu scheme is again actually for promoting exports. So it seeks to reach out to exporters and mentor them, okay, through various programs. So I hope all the things that we have discussed are clear. We have discussed about the types of trade policy: open oriented, okay, outward oriented, inward oriented. Okay, and in case of inward oriented, there will be tariffs and non-tariffs, and we have also discussed about what are the non-tariff barriers. And then we have discussed about trade policy reforms since 1991, and then we've discussed about foreign trade policy 2015-20. Okay.